How's it going, guys? My name is Franco and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing our monthly analysis for the month of December. So 2025 is almost over. We're now entering the new phase of this crypto cycle. So we're going to be going through, basically what played out in November and what we expect to come for the rest of not only December, but going through 2025. Now, if you do enjoy this sort of content, remember to hit that subscribe button. We're awfully close to 800 subs. We are going for 1,000 by the end of the year, although we're running out of time very quickly, so it's unlikely we'll hit that. But we do, obviously technical analysis such as this, and we do a whole bunch of different videos, a lot of different exchange reviews, things like that. So feel free to subscribe, comment any questions you have down below, and like the video. But let's just jump straight into the analysis. Right, so here we are on our monthly chart. Now, this is basically following our 4-year cycle. We've been using this for a long time now. Like if we just go back onto our Twitter, and if we can find the original post, is it really that simple for Bitcoin? That essentially, we're going to be in this 2-year consolidation period, basically up towards the end of the year. We did shift things a little bit to the left because you can see I didn't actually ping the exact bottom. For some reason, instead of December, we were talking about November. Being the essentially the breakout month, and that was exactly the case. You can see November here, a huge breakout month into the start of the green phase of the bull market. So what we talk about is, from the top, 1 year down, 2 years across to the prior all-time high, and then about 11 months up, give or take, of course. It does shift about a little bit. You can see like this one, it's more like 25 months across. Really, I mean, it depends. These things aren't exact sciences, right? You could say it's 27 months across. You could say it's 25. You could say it's 24. This one's up 10 months. It's give or take, right? We typically look at about 11 months being up. So here we are now in the green phase of the cycle. You can see this plays out time and time again. And, so far it has been working out really, really well for us. Now, if you've been following the channel for a long time, we have been talking about buying essentially this whole blue box. Most recently we spoke about, if I can find the other tweet that I want to look at, essentially, a lot of people are going to be going to wish they bought sub 60K during this pullback. That was September 19th. If we have a look back, obviously September being, this green month here, obviously would have been great to be buying sub $60,000 right around here. So I hope you guys have been following. Hopefully you guys have been buying, following this 4-year cycle as we gear up for the final year of the bull market. But this is definitely going to still be a difficult time, but for an entirely separate reason, because now we got to start to consider selling. We're getting to that point of the cycle now. We should have basically done all of our buying. And if you're starting to think about what the next best step is, it is to think about selling. So in this video, we'll go through a few of our selling, our rules towards selling, when we expect the next pullback, and just a whole bunch of different things. So we'll start off with when do we expect the next pullback, because I think this is where a lot of people are going to get confused. You hear a lot of people saying, I'm going to sell early 2025. There's some people saying, I'm going to wait for this super cycle, when Bitcoin hits $200,000. The opinions are starting to come out in a flurry, and it's really, really all over the shop. But when we talk about, a next pullback, we do typically see at least one considerable pullback in this green, final year of the bull market. You can see what I've got projected out for April, but we'll go back and we'll have a look at the past. So obviously 2021, we had about 4 bars across to the eventual top. Now this was a very significant pullback that started in April. So, what we're looking at here is basically, 4 or 5 months. We do have a considerable pullback in the market. This one happened to start in April. If we go back to the other cycle, there wasn't as considerable a pullback in terms of, how long it lasted, but in terms of percentage, this was undoubtedly a pretty large. If we just go to the top to the bottom of this bar, it is 40%, a big 40% pullback. That is, obviously pretty scary if you're in the market at that time. That took about 7 months, or you could even mark it from this bar here because that was essentially the top, but 6 or 7 months across. This happened in September. Now, I guess we'll go back to this, but you'll see that there's a bit of a recurring pattern around April. If we go across to the next one, this is a bit, less important this cycle, but you can see, from the top to the bottom here, 11 bars. We did have a pullback about 4 bars in. That happened to be on April. Yes, April was a green month, but that was essentially did mark the top. So then looking forward, we've had 4 bars, 7 bars, 4 bars, and this one, I mean, April, 2 out of the 3 cycles so far, we've seen April be the month for a pullback. So I expect that to probably be the same. It lines up. It's about 5 months in. It seems realistic, especially if we were to project this out. Essentially, we've been up now 3 months. You can see our 3-month up. So 1, 2, 3. Another. If I can just get this across, another, across to here will take us up to about 7. So 6 or 7 bars up wouldn't be crazy. There probably could be a little red one in there. But 6 or 7 bars is typically where we see, the tops sort of start to form. You can see that with last cycle, 6 bars up into a top. Same thing again here. We had about 5 bars into that red. And same thing again here. We had about 6 bars into that mid-cycle slowdown. So, 5, 6, 7 months up into a, what is relatively a small pullback in the grand scheme of things, about halfway through this green box. That leads me to believe, we should expect the pullback, or we definitely expect the pullback in somewhere in these 11 months. Based on what I'm looking at about April being a reasonable time. It could be March, could be, May, but it's going to be around that period in time, I think. And I think what's going to happen, what you typically see with this period is that people are calling the end of the bull market. So that will definitely happen. We're going to get to this point. People are going to say it's over. That is it. Sell your Bitcoin, get out. We'll see probably a 30-40% pullback, and then things will rally up into the final year. That is my prediction currently. But as we're saying, that is not the very top of the cycle. That is just, a mid, a short-term pullback that we're looking at, sometime coming up, because of course, that's what we need to start looking at now is, when do we expect another pullback? Is that a buying opportunity? Not necessarily. I think it's just more of a selling opportunity. Maybe start selling some bags, take some chips off the table. That's not to say that that is going to be the top, but, you're best to, start de-risking yourself essentially. The other thing you want to look at when we're looking at, when we're looking to start cashing out, of course, we've got April as one of our targets, and then later in the year, around that October being the very, very top, if this cycle plays out perfectly. So it may not play out perfectly. Let's just remember that, guys, because the other thing we want to look at is pricing. We don't talk about pricing very often, but it is an important factor, right? That's what most people are going to be looking at. People are looking at 100K Bitcoin, people are looking at 200,000 Bitcoin. I'm going to sell it all. When in reality, we just need to, we've bought towards the bottom. We just need to sell somewhere towards the top. It doesn't matter exactly where. We just want to take our profits and leave the market before things get really, really bad. So if we look at prior cycles, this is just a very, loose way of looking at it. This isn't, highly scientific or anything. But what we see each and every cycle, just the green part of the cycle, is that the percentage gain decreases. So you can see cycle 1, 9,700. Cycle 2, 1,500. Cycle 3, I'm not sure why that. There we go, 250%. So what we would assume is that essentially we're going to gain less than 250%, just based on the fact that each and every cycle we see essentially decreased return. As the asset price grows, it's harder to get those larger and larger gains, obviously. So we would expect prices to run up, less than 250%. 250%, from the prior all-time high takes us, to $240,000 Bitcoin. It's about $172,000 run up. Now, do we expect to get anywhere near that number? No, don't expect that. But just theoretically looking at this, the fact that we're going to have less than 250%. Anyone that's telling you we're going to hit 250K Bitcoin, rule that out. I don't see that happening whatsoever. The other thing we want to look at is in terms of dollar value. So each and every cycle we see the run up in terms of dollar value increase. So this one being $1,200, $18,000, $49,000, and then we would expect more than $49,000 from the prior all-time high. So that takes us, from 69,000, up about 50,000, takes us to about 119,000 US dollars. So obviously that is a pretty big range, right? We're just looking at this in terms of performance versus prior cycles. We expect to land somewhere in between this range. It is obviously massive. We're talking, just this just this box is, 100% gains. You could be gaining or missing out on depending on where you decide to sell. So we probably want some other factors to look at. So the other thing I would look at would just be some, Fibonacci extensions. From from the bottom to the top of the current cycle, and then the next breakout, how far will we expect that to extend out? And you can just see 1.5 to 2.53. Just looking at our Fibonacci extension levels. Realistically, pick and choose either one of these. Maybe these are just selling points that you pick. Maybe you say, I'm going to sell, 20% of my bag, going to sell 30% of my bag, 30% of my bag, 20% of my bag. Whatever it might be, it doesn't really matter. But realistically, I would probably just be looking, around these middle two, somewhere around here, as your other sell target in terms of price. You can move it a little bit, depending on how, you want to play out the cycle. Maybe you're more conservative. You want to start taking profits from, 18 up to 130 or 18 up to 160. Whatever you want it to be, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you just want to say, I'm going to cash out all at 190,000. I wouldn't suggest that, but that's how you can play these things out, right? It's up to you guys. I'm not going to tell you how to play the cycles, but these are just some price points that I'm looking at. So, essentially, me personally, I start looking to sell at about 118,000 Bitcoin. And then realistically, I think, I'm probably, my maximum will be about that $160,000 range. If I'm still holding Bitcoin after that, I've probably lost the plot, or I'm dead, or, I'm just being way too greedy. So hopefully, that's not going to happen. Of course, I'm just going to follow my plan, which is, to definitely be sold out by at least this point, being the absolute top for me. That's just my opinion. I don't know how things are going to play out, but I'd be quite happy with those with those returns. So I guess that pretty well covers our expectations for the next year, right? Of Bitcoin. We've seen the breakout perfectly as predicted in November. And now we're just looking at a potential pullback in about April. And then an eventual price, the price topping at around 118 to 240,000. Obviously a massive range. We'll see how this plays out. I'm looking more realistically, between these two bars, that 160 to 130,000. So we'll chuck that there, and we'll see how this tracks out. I'm not following this, to my last breath. As we say, if things start to break down, if we start breaking monthly swing lows, or monthly swing tops, that would be cause for concern. Which currently these sit at, about 74K as our monthly swing top, and then the absolute worst case scenario would be breaking the swing lows, which currently sit at about 50,000. Seems crazy from this point, but that is, where the current support sits. And then of course, as we create new monthly swing lows, that could change. Say we run up till April, we have a pullback, say 110,000. That becomes our new monthly swing low. You can see how these things change, right? Then that would be our last and final sell point. You get how these things kind of work, right? But that is basically our predictions going into 2025. Hopefully that makes sense. We're just following the cycles. We're just following what has happened in the past. It's not going to be the exact same, but it's going to be quite similar. That's what we've seen in the blue cycle. We didn't expect Bitcoin to run up to an all-time high in March, but at the end of the day, the result was the same. We got that eventual breakout in November, like we predicted, and that's how Bitcoin works. It throws people off. It doesn't play out the exact same. And that's how they, fool the market most of the time. All right, now let's move on to ETH. ETH is starting to look like one of the better tokens again, going into the bull market, of course. We talked about this for a long time. We talked about $4,000 being major resistance, which it was. And then we spoke about, we had a bunch of different support levels, but we spoke about essentially this trend line being the final point of support, which it, pretty well was, which is quite fortunate. We've seen, since seen it hold the trend line. Okay, and just finally, last thing on Bitcoin, if we look at this on the daily chart, the daily chart isn't looking incredible, but we have just had as we just were looking at, a really bullish monthly close. So just, full precaution on just everything that we've just spoken about. There is that possibility, if I can find what I'm looking for, that, for the start of December, we just sort of see something like this, get a nice wick, and then later into the December, we get a nice push up. That wouldn't surprise me, okay, because people are, people who just bought all in around 100,000 got really bullish. Just wipe all those people out, get them scared, and then push up later into the month. Still get that good monthly close That's what we really want to look at, is strong monthly closes. We just had a really strong monthly close. All right, closing at 96,000 is very, very bullish. But it wouldn't surprise me just at the start of December, we see a bit of a shakeout, but then we, maintain structure before we close later into the month. We'll see how that plays out. That's me just throwing out random ideas, but I could imagine something like that playing out. Since then, ETH hold the trend line, hold the 50% level, the major 50% level, and start to rally back up. Now, what happens next, I'm not too sure, but the matter of fact is that, we just need to break $4,000, right? We've been talking about this for a long time. If we can break above 4,000, just consolidate, I think then we go off to the races for the final push up. So, we could see something similar, right? If we're thinking about our cycles, if Bitcoin's going to run up into April, maybe Ethereum does the same thing. Say maybe we run up. Okay, that's probably a bit too steep a line. But maybe, Ethereum runs up, to April, if I can find April or March, whatever, and then comes back, consolidates, and then we see that final move, something like that. That's not to say that's exactly how it's going to play out. I don't know. But, we just sort of got to think, okay, what is happening with Bitcoin, the crypto market as a whole? How is that going to affect Ethereum? If we're expecting Bitcoin to run up a little bit longer, a little bit stronger, then possibly ETH runs up as well. For that period of time, we'll have to wait and see how exactly this plays out. But I would say ETH is looking like quite a strong token. We're seeing really good consolidation, and as I said, once we break out of that $4,000, I think we start to get very, very bullish. Now, as for CRO, we've seen obviously a very, very good month. About 150% up in this month alone. From the low of 7 cents to the high of 23.5 cents. That is a pretty awesome pump up. Obviously on the back of a lot of good news for CRO, we broke that 15-cent we broke the 10-cent resistance. We've been talking about that for a long time. Once we can actually get above that and hold it instead of just, quick up and down movements. But, that's a really, obviously good. Breaking the 10 cents, breaking the 15 cents. Obviously still some resistance around 20 cents. That's not surprising. But, if we find ourselves, if we're looking at, whereabouts we are right now, we'll pull up this 50% level. From the bottom of the move to the top of the move, you can see that we basically just pushed up, came back down, tested 50%, pushed back up again, resistance on 20, came back down. So we're in a bit of a limbo state. We spoke about it on Twitter, how, these, few days down are quite concerning, that we've just, pushed up, come straight back down. But the good news is that we're holding that 50%. So it's, just a waiting game at this point. We've got higher highs and higher lows. We've got lower highs and lower lows. Lower highs and lower highs, but higher lows. So we're just in a bit of a wedge at the moment. We'll see which way we break out of this. Obviously, we're still quite bullish on CRO. We're seeing this as this large accumulation zone that we've been talking about for a long, long time. And we don't expect this to, be the end of CRO, after what is essentially almost, over a year of accumulation for CRO, under that 10-cent range. We expect this breakout to lead to more bullish things, but, in the short term, we'll wait and see. CRO is very, very volatile. We're talking about that last month with 60% drawbacks being quite common. But, in terms of, on the monthly chart, what we're looking at here is basically nothing has changed, right? We've got, on the monthly chart, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, basically a double bottom, higher high. So we'll see, how this plays out over the coming months, but this is a pretty bullish chart to me. And if we look at the last cycle, just to compare, CRO is a quite unique token. If I can just remove the volume because it's covering up a lot of this chart. You can see that we go one move, 60%, two move, 60%, three move, 60%, four move, absolutely booming out. Now, I don't think this is going to play out the exact same because you can see one move, about, probably not 60%, but give or take, two move down, three move, are we going to come down and then boom into the fourth move? Maybe it plays out the exact same, but, you can see that this is quite common for CRO to have these sort of massive swings, but we are just waiting basically for this eventual move, right? That's what we're hoping for. So we'll wait and see if that plays out, but so far nothing to really be concerned about. Now, as for Solana, we've been talking about this one as well for the longest period of time, being one of the most bullish tokens that we've been looking at. But to be honest, guys, we are now, almost at all-time highs. Did we break on Coinbase, high at 264, 63, 260? So we actually did break a new all-time high, at least on Coinbase, because that's the chart we're on at the moment. But we were talking about, Solana down here as buys, potentially buying around this 50% level again, which you can see we only really wick to. Solana hasn't given people a lot of good buying opportunities, which is how, strong tokens often act. You got to buy in quick before, you're not going to get the perfect buying opportunity. But to be honest, guys, at this point in time, I'm not really looking at buying any more Solana. As we break out into new all-time highs, sure, we can, run up who knows how far on Solana. These are sort of just my, these are some, it's because we're looking at selling in the second half of the year. I should probably move this back a bit to about July, because we're looking at selling in the second half of next year. But to be honest, I wouldn't really be looking at buying Solana anymore. It's sort of just in its price exploration. If you got in here, well done. But if you're buying up here, I think you're a little bit too late. Yes, you can get some good gains. There's nothing to say that we don't just continue running up. As you can see, we're sort of looking at our extensions. You might get a good 70% move to here. And that's all well and good, but your risk versus reward is kind of skewed now, because we could just easily just come back down. This could just be a double top and that's it. But if you're someone that bought, down around these levels, down around here, you can see that the gains are just, that much more significant. And you can hold out, and, you can still sell, if we break back down at the highs and close lower, you can still sell for profit. But, at this point in time with Solana, same thing again. If we look at this on the monthly time frame, nothing to be concerned about, just the, highest monthly close ever. I could probably, I think we see this push up a little bit longer. Same thing again, if we're looking out towards April, maybe Solana does like a bit of a something like that and then come back down. With the top being at April, that's a terrible line, but you get the idea. If we're comparing it to Bitcoin, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, going on to Trust Wallet token, this is one that we were pretty concerned about, because it did actually break, the trend line that we're talking about. But it's actually gotten back above. I didn't sell any of my Trust Wallet just yet, because I was waiting, basically for a bad monthly close, which we didn't actually see. And since then, we've been able to get back above the trend line, push up a bit higher. Next thing is that 50% level still. We could probably move it down a little bit to this low here, as opposed to this low. But either doesn't really matter. It's a few cents here and there. What we're really looking at is the big picture, which is get above that 50% level. In terms of monthly swing lows and swing tops, nothing's actually really changed since we covered it last. You can see sort of a bit of a double bottom here. So take what you want from this. Just monthly double bottom. We haven't broken any major lows, but we're also yet to break any major highs. So let's see if we can get above, firstly, the 50% level, and then secondly, these, sort of monthly swing tops that range at $1.50 up to about $1.80. Let's see how we can go doing that. But until then, nothing's really changed with this token. And finally, Bitcoin dominance. I'll be honest, we got this one terribly, terribly wrong. We're of the belief we sort of cap out here around 57%, all the way down to 52. We had a pretty large box. Maybe we should have extended it out to these wicks, in that range, but we were just sort of looking at quite a, tight, 57%, pushing up into this box. We're calling that for quite some time. We did see it happen. We sort of, we got bearish on Bitcoin dominance, around this level here. If I turn off this magnet, we'll got bearish around here. But then it did push up a little bit higher than most people would have expected, and that's what the markets do. They just fool most of the people most of the time. But is this the top now? Hard to really say. Of course I hope so. I'd like to see an altcoin season. I think it's more than likely. If not this bar, over the coming months, we do see the top for Bitcoin dominance, because as we've been saying, we are in that final year of the bull market. So things are going to get crazy for not only Bitcoin, but more so your altcoins. So we'll have to see how that plays out exactly. And then the final thing we want to look at is ETH to Bitcoin. So this is something that, you don't want to catch a falling knife. You can see that Bitcoin or Ethereum, essentially, even if you bought in 2021, your Ethereum is still valued the same as your Bitcoin. And if you're someone that's been buying Ethereum and Bitcoin all during the bear market, you've basically just been you would have been better off just buying Bitcoin, if you're looking at your opportunity cost. But I guess the positive thing is that, the news around Ethereum as of late has been very, very, very bearish. So, as I said, going into that last year, we could be looking at this changing. How far we run up, I don't know. It could be really terrible. It could be some really, really poor gains. It could go further. It could pump up, into fresh highs for the cycle and then come back down. Later in the year, I don't know how exactly this is going to play out, but I think we're looking at potentially, at least a short-term bottom for Ethereum. And by short-term bottom, we could be talking about the rest of this cycle, right? We're only got a year left. As we said, say we pump out, to later next year, that's about November. Say we just push up like that and then come back down. I think long-term Ethereum will lose value to Bitcoin, but in this short term, we could see a nice short-term bottom, and Ethereum bags could start getting pumped finally, for all the ETH holders. But we'll have to wait and see. This is obviously a very early call, considering we've seen one green month, but we are sort of getting towards those ranging bottoms around here, and we have seen a pretty big wick to the low side off some bearish news, and a higher close. So let's wait and see. Obviously altcoin season will happen sooner or later, but we just got to wait for the cycle to play out. So we've got some time frames, some targets, some price targets for Bitcoin. Just to quickly summarize, possibly a push up into April, and then a pullback as we see the mid, one big pullback during the green period of the cycle. Price targets anywhere from 118,000 to 240,000. Obviously a big range, but we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. So we'll be back next month. Hopefully we've broken 100,000. If you did enjoy, hit that subscribe button. We are at 798 subscribers, and feel free to check me out on X. We post some thoughts here. It's good if you're following this sort of monthly analysis, but you just want some more shorter term updates. We see some posts in the mid-month. This is where we put our price targets up for the cycle, so you can get some things that we're covering here on the monthly analysis a little bit earlier, if you do enjoy. So remember, hit that subscribe button. Questions, feel free to comment down below. Hit the like button. There's referral codes in the description. Feel free to use those if you're looking to sign up to any exchanges. But for now, that is everything, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.